Not sure what actually makes a barefoot shoe? When I started looking for alternative footwear, I too was confused by terms such as barefoot, minimalist, and zero drop, and I had no idea where to start. Now I've been wearing barefoot shoes for over 2 years and owned over 30 pairs for everything from the gym to daily use to office use. In this video, I'm going to show you 5 things that I've learned that truly define a barefoot shoe. When I first started with barefoot shoes, I had no idea. I was actually searching for wide toe box shoes to deal with a Morton's neuroma in my right foot that was causing severe pain there. Only after some time did I discover barefoot shoes and learned how they helped my body. So what I've learned is that barefoot shoes have one simple philosophy in mind, and that is to let your foot perform as naturally as possible while offering additional tools or protection to that foot. So I can see a lot of you now saying, no, Ryan, my foot performs naturally as it is in regular shoes. Why on earth do I need barefoot shoes? And that's exactly what I used to think until I discovered these 5 features of barefoot shoes and how they help your body to perform more naturally. So the first feature of a barefoot shoe is a wide toe box. Now, other words for this might be an anatomical toe box or a natural foot-shaped toe box. So why do we need wide toe boxes in our shoes? Mainly to let our toes splay in the shoe. Now this has numerous benefits. First, most obvious being it doesn't cramp your toes and can help you avoid foot deformities such as bunions and hammer toes and Morton's neuromas like I have. Second, it actually gives you a lot of strength and stability. When your toes splay out, it's actually working a lot of muscles in the rest of the foot and even up into the calf. And as those muscles are working, it's strengthening up the foot. Secondly, it gives a lot of stability. When your toes splay, you get a wider platform in the shoe, which also helps with the walking and a lot of activities in the gym. So I use in the office this Vivobarefoot shoe. It's called the RA, and you can see it has a very wide and anatomical toe box. When you compare that to a regular office shoe, I used to wear these. This is a regular office shoe. They are very sleek and tapered. The easiest way to determine a wide toe box, the widest point is at the toes rather than at the ball of the foot. That moves us on to the second feature, which is zero drop. So what is zero drop? Basically, zero drop means that a shoe from heel through to toe is on the same plane, meaning at the heel and at the toe, there is no offset between shoes, which you do see on a lot of shoes. Now, why do we want a zero drop shoes? The main reason is that when you're wearing a offset between the heel and the toe, it raises your heels up, which then changes the position of your knees, and then your hips have to compensate, and it can throw lots of things out of alignment. Now, example of this is this Primus Lite. This is one of Vivobarefoot's best-selling shoes. I use it a lot for the gym. It's a great shoe, and you can see when I'm wearing this heel through to toe, there's no drop. If I take the extreme example for another gym shoe that is very well liked, this is the Nike Metcon. It's a few years old now, and I used to wear this shoe at the gym. There is a lot of cushioning at the heel and not very much at the toe. So that leads us to our third feature, and that is a thin and flexible sole. And for a shoe to have a thin and flexible sole, it needs to be able to bend in all different directions, like this Primus Lite that I have here. It can bend on both axes, in all axes, and you can roll it up into a really small ball, like so, which is great for traveling. You could bring more shoes on trips. There's numerous benefits here. I'm just going to touch on a few. First, as I mentioned before, with that natural toe splay, when you're at the gym, it gives you more stability. Think about it, if you're lifting with a huge chunk of cushion or padding underneath your foot, it's like you're going to be lifting with pillows underneath your feet. There's going to be a lot more instability, which can lead to issues when you are lifting weights. The second is something I only learned when I got into barefoot shoes, and that is to do with proprioception. Now, proprioception is all to do with the feedback that you're getting from the ground. So it's quite a strange experience when you wear barefoot shoes for the first time. You can feel the whole surface underneath your foot, from every rock to every piece of pavement. So your foot actually has thousands of nerves on the bottom, and the more you receive feedback and feel these sort of things, it wakes those nerves back up and brings your foot back to life. When you're walking and using cushion shoes all the time, that's muted and you lose all of those feelings in the nerves. So my example for this one is the Primus Lite, which is a very thin and flexible shoe. Not all barefoot shoes are as thin as this. When you compare that to a carbon plated running racing shoe that I do sometimes wear. It is extremely stiff. I'm really trying to push that, and it's like you have casts on your feet when you run. There's no flexibility whatsoever. Now this, I know, is an extreme example. A lot of other running shoes aren't, are a lot more flexible, but a lot are as stiff as this. Now the fourth feature you need in a barefoot shoe is no arch support. Now why do you need this? Is because arch support act like crutches. Imagine if you use crutches for your whole life, your foot muscles would go weak and dead. Think of the same thing for your feet. When you're wearing arch support the whole time, the muscles in the foot are being supported, they're not being used, so they shrink. Now, when you start with barefoot shoes, the sudden drop off on the arch support can be problematic, and that's why you need to transition slowly and carefully, and I can do a whole nother video on that. But overall, when you start to use barefoot shoes, your muscles are being left to fight for themselves. They start getting used, and overall you have a stronger foot. So it restores your natural foot movement. I don't actually have insoles of old shoes anymore. I have these orthotic insoles that I was given years ago to fix my foot pain, and you can see the amount of arch support that they have on these, as well as they're very flexible. When you compare that to a barefoot shoe insole, it's extremely flat. This one is from the Primus Lite. I just showed you there is no arch support whatsoever. And that moves us on to the final feature, which is around a secure feet on a barefoot shoe. Now this feature I didn't appreciate till much later into my barefoot journey. At first I thought all four features, great. Flip-flops, I love wearing these. These are barefoot shoes. They're flexible, they got zero drop, but actually that is not the case at all. Fifth feature, where you need to have your ankle secure. So when you're moving through the motion, the sole actually stays connected to your heel. Otherwise, your toes actually have to counteract the sole coming off. So it creates an unnatural movement with those toes, and therefore it's not classified as barefoot. I don't have any examples of these, but the other side of this would be barefoot sandals, which you see a lot of strapping around the ankle to make sure that the sole is connected to the heel. So those are the 5 features that I consider to be needed for a shoe to be truly barefoot. But some of that stuff is a bit complicated. For instance, how wide is actually wide for it to be considered barefoot? How thin do you need it to actually be thin enough for barefoot? So let's go through some examples to explain this point. The first being another shoe from Vivobarefoot. Now this is their motor strength. Even though that's very wide, it's not as flexible at the back. Even though the front's very flexible, at the back is not flexible at all. So would you consider this barefoot? Who knows? Similarly, this shoe from Zero, it's called the Prio, and it's one of their best selling shoes. Now, in terms of flexibility, again, it isn't great, especially across that midsole. Could you consider this truly barefoot? Same question. Then let's move back to Vivobarefoot. So they have another shoe, the Primus Trail. I've been enjoying this shoe. It does get a lot of criticism from the barefoot community because it is not very wide in the toe box. I actually feel this a lot when I wear it, especially on my right foot. I cannot splay the toes as much as my left. So can it be considered a true barefoot shoe? Also, we have a shoe from a brand called Barefoot. Now this shoe I do enjoy a lot, but it does have a much thicker sole. Is this shoe considered barefoot with that thicker sole, slightly less flexibility? Again, a lot of people say this is more of a transition shoe over a barefoot shoe, but the brand is all around barefoot. And this is where you enter the world of minimalist shoes, where I like to think of these shoes as having barefoot DNA within the brand, not explicitly following all 5 of those features, but following a few of them. You'll see a lot of shoes have a lot more cushion underneath the foot, such as Ultras. This Ultra running shoe I use a lot, has a nice wide toe box, follows a natural foot shape, but obviously a lot of cushion. So does the label of barefoot or minimalist shoe actually matter? In my opinion, not at all. If you have a shoe with even one of those 5 features, other than probably the secure feet, you're already doing 1,000 times better than regular footwear. But what you need to understand is how those features translate and how they impact your body. And then you can see what you're actually looking for, and that can decide what type of shoe you actually need. Do you need a really wide shoe, like myself, to help with my motor neuroma or pain? You might have bunions and need extra width, or maybe you're looking for something really thin, get a lot more sensory feedback from the ground. For me, it was all about wide toe boxes. It just so happened wide toe boxes exist in a lot of barefoot shoes, and then I found barefoot shoes and I've begun to enjoy those a lot more, but by no means I'm a purist. I'll go on holiday, I'll wear some Birkenstocks sometimes, I'll wear some flip-flops, thongs down to the beach. I'll go run in ultras, but also do races in carbon-plated racing shoes that are not ultras. But I've spent the majority of my time there, and my feet get the benefits of barefoot and minimalist footwear during that time, so I can afford to spend that small amount of time in regular or traditional shoes. So I hope that was helpful. So subscribe to join me on my journey learning about barefoot and wide toe box shoes. I'm just getting started. I'll be posting a lot more content around barefoot shoes and doing reviews on barefoot and wide toe box shoes. So make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss any. But thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.